Hey, you've tuned into Math with Mr. C. This time we're doing 18.1 Geometry, Solid Figures. Now on this lesson, we're going to start with 5 vocab words. Those are polyhedron, face, pyramid, edge, and vertex. I'm going to show you the glossary for each one. So for polyhedron, this is a three-dimensional figure made of flat surfaces, each side is flat, that are polygons, which means that if a side is curved, then it's not a polyhedron. Next one is face. A face is a flat surface that makes up a polyhedron. Next one is pyramid. A pyramid is a specific type of polyhedron whose base can be any shape, any polygon, and whose faces, the up and down sides, are triangles. They're triangles because they meet in a point every time. I know that it's a pyramid if it ends in a point. The next one is edge. An edge is a line segment, which means it stops, where two faces of a polyhedron meet. So for this one, then this face and this face meet on the edge. And the last one for now is vertex. Now, if I'm saying there's multiple or more than one vertex, we're going to use the word vertices, which you should also write in your notes. But this is a point where two rays or two line segments form an angle and they meet. The points where the sides of a polygon meet, or the points where three or more edges meet in a solid figure. It is also known as the pointed part of a cone, which is one of the shapes that we'll talk about today. So let's go to the example. So how are polyhedrons classified, or what do we call them? That's what we're going to go over today. So a polyhedron, as we went over, is a three-dimensional figure made of flat polygon-shaped surfaces. What are these surfaces called? They're called faces. The polygon-shaped surfaces of the polyhedron are called faces. What is the line segment where two faces intersect called? That's called an edge. What is the point where several edges meet called? Like right here. That's called a vertex. If you got those right, then you're already catching on. How many faces or flat surfaces does this polyhedron have? Give you a second to count. The polyhedron has 8 faces. There are 6 sides and then 2 bases. 6 of the faces are rectangles and 2 are hexagons. The bases, the hexagons, are what's going to control what we name this as we go on. How many edges does this have? Count the edges. This polygon has 18 edges. Each of those. So there's 6 on each side. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on each base. So there's 2 bases, so that's 12 for the base, and then 6 for the sides. And this polyhedron also has 12 vertices or points. So why would I call something a prism? Well, a prism is a specific type of polyhedron with 2 congruent, which means same size and same shape, parallel polygon-shaped bases. So this rectangle is the same exact size as this rectangle, and they're also parallel. So what would I call this? What kind of shape is this base? It's a rectangle, so I'd call it a rectangular prism. We can just look at always what shape is the base, and then we can call it a prism if it's enclosed and it has one side that's parallel to another, 2 bases. So what about this one? I see this is still a prism. There's 2 bases that are parallel, but what do I call this top shape? It has 5 sides. I'd call that a pentagon, a pentagonal prism. What about this one? I see that there's a triangle on top, so I'd call that a triangular prism. And what about this one? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's called an octagon. Therefore, it's called an octagonal prism. But what about pyramids? So they have a base, but how do we know how to name it? Well, similar, we just look at the shape of the base. So this is a triangle. So I'm going to call it a triangular pyramid. This is a square base, and I see that it meets in a point, so it's a pyramid. So whenever it looks like a square, it's also just safe to call it a rectangle because a square is a type of rectangle. So we can call this a rectangular pyramid. And this is a hexagonal pyramid because this has 6 sides as the base. And this is called a pentagonal pyramid because it has 5 sides as the base. So we just learned about prisms and pyramids and how we might name them. For these next 3 vocab words, cylinder, sphere, and cone, you can choose whether you'd like to do the picture, draw the picture, or whether you'd like to write the definition. Make sure you write what each is. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so moving on, you don't need to write this vocab word, but a net, they look like this, and it's when you take a figure like a 3D rectangular prism and you just kind of flatten it out. So if we spread out a cereal box or any type of box, it's a plain figure pattern when if we fold this, it would make this 3D shape of a rectangular solid, and it could make any 3D shape. So I want to show you some nets for common figures. So here we have a cube, and I want you to pick 2 of these to draw in your notes. So here's a cube, and here's its net. See how it unfolds. I'm going to do it one more time and see how it unfolds. The next one is, what do I call this one? See, it's got bases of triangles. This is called a triangular prism. How does that look as a net? Let's show you that one more time. So the bases, and then we see the sides here. What do I call this one? I hope you're thinking about the 2 that you need to draw. This one's called a rectangular prism. This one, what do I call this one? I guess it really depends on what the base is. Let's see what the base is. Oh, it's a square. So I'd call that a square pyramid. What would I call this one? I'd call that a cone. And I think this is interesting to think about, but this line right here is exactly the same distance as the circumference of the circle. It just looks a lot longer, so that's why that's so long, and it ends in a point. Now I'm wondering what this is going to look like over here, the cylinder. Oh, it has a rectangle in the middle. Well, that's because both bases are the same size, different than the pyramid, different than the cone. So both bases are circles, so they're going to be the same size on either side. And so here is the cylinder. All right, so here's example 1. Classify the polyhedron. Okay, so we need to classify it. So we need to know, what is it called? All right, I see a rectangle at the bottom, and it's a pyramid. All right, rectangular pyramid. Faces. Name all the faces, including the base. All right, so let's do this first side, the one facing us. AED. Next one is going to be to its left. I did that wrong. The first one's AEB is in the front. The one to its left is AED. Just so you know that the order of the numbers doesn't matter. I could write this EDA. It doesn't matter. CED is the back, And the right side, what could I call that? I could call that BEC. And that's all the 4 sides, so what's the base? I could call that ABCD. All right. Now do the edges. All right, what are the edges? All right, I see AE, and I'm just going to go through and I'm going to label the edges. ED, EC, EB. Is that all of them? Oh, I got to do the base now. AD, DC, BC, and the last one is AB. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that is correct as I count the edges. The next one that they want us to do is vertices. Those are just all the points. So I'm just going to put my letters down like this. And that's my answer to example 1. Make sure you drew the picture on this as well. We're going to example 2 in 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to give you time now to try to draw this rectangular prism. And then I just gave you what to classify it as, but then name all the faces, edges, and vertices. I'm going to give you the answers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, in my opinion, as I try to keep track of this, I'm very aware that it could be confusing, so I just kind of split it up. So I know there's 6 faces, and so on the top one is E, H, G, F. It doesn't have to be that exact order, but it could be that order. I want to give a non-example. So it cannot be E, H, F, G, because that's not an order. So as long as you're going around an order in some way. And here's the front right here, the right side, the left side, which is kind of hidden, the back, which is hidden, and the bottom. The edges, just make sure there's 12. I went top, and then I did the bottom, and then I did the sides. So I counted the edges on the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I did the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I did the sides, 1, 2, 3, 4. The vertices were a lot easier. So make sure you have that written, labeled, and faces, edges, and vertices. Going on to the only independent practice problem in 3, 2, 1. Alright, I lied. There's 7 independent practice problems, but they're a lot easier than what we just did. So for each of these, you don't need to draw the shape. Yeah, I just want you to write 9 through 15 and write what you would call each figure. And I'm going to show you the answers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there are your answers to independent practice. Hexagonal pyramid, cube, cone, triangular prism, square or rectangular pyramid because that's the base. This is a triangle as a base, so triangular pyramid and cone. Thank you so much for watching.